Hello everyone, welcome back to Jacqs. Thank you for joining me today. I am Jackie. You may have recently seen my video on my Christmas Advent calendar box and drawer, and it also has a mini album in it. If you haven't, I have it linked down below for you. But today what I wanted to do was to show you how I created this. So let's just dig right in. To create the box, we're going to cut a piece of cardstock at 5 3/4 by 4 3/4. If you are using a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, you can get 4 of this size out of that, or 2 out of 8.5 by 11. I am using Recollections craft cardstock because I like the heaviness of this particular cardstock. Next, we're going to take our piece and score it, and we're going to do that at 5/8, 1 3/8, and we're going to do that on all 4 sides. So you rotate to the left, do 5/8 and 1 3/8, and rotate again. And one more time. So when you have it all scored, it will look like this. So holding your cardstock on the short end, you will see that there are 4 blocks that we have scored. From the right hand side, you have 1, 2 score lines. We're going to go at the bottom of the first score line and cut up to the second score line here, and do the same for the second score line down. Next, we're going to cut out this middle section here. So it will look like that. And then now we're going to cut off this first block. And so it will look like this. So you do that all the way around. And if you want to tidy up your cut lines, you can do that afterward or as you go along. We're going to create a box out of this, so it may not matter in the end. Okay, so when you're done, this is what it will look like. The next thing we're going to do is burnish all of our score lines. I think it'll be easier that way when we get ready to start gluing. Okay, now holding the card this way, or having it oriented this way, I'm going to use my art glitter glue. We're going to put glue on the center of this first piece, and then we're going to fold this over. So it will look like that. Let's do the other side as well. So then we have our piece that looks like this. Now let's turn it on the short end. And what we're going to do is fold these little tabs in. We're going to put glue on the end of each of those and at the top part of this. Okay? So when you fold these in, this is when we start to form the box end. So kind of square that all up and fold this over. So just make sure you get it to be a nice square. Press that down, and then you could probably burnish to get it to seal really well. And then we'll do that again over here. Fold these down, put some glue on them. Glue up here at the top. And then fold this over the little tabs, square up the box, and then fold the flap in and over. And give that a burnish. So here is the inside of our little matchbox. Now, dependent on the number of countdown that you're doing in your calendar, you will create that many boxes. So if you're doing a 12 days countdown, make 12 of these. If you're doing a 24, which is what I'm doing, we'll make 24 of these boxes, as well as the wraps, which we'll be doing next. For your wrap, you will need a piece of cardstock at 6 3 1/8. If you are using a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, you will need 4 of those to cut out 24 of this size. If you are using 8.5 by 11, you can cut 3 from that sheet. We really need a scored board with 1/16 of an inch marked, but since we don't have that, we have to make a little bit of a variation when we are scoring the wrapping piece. Okay, so let's get started with that. We're going to score at 3/4 of an inch. What we're going to do then is take where we scored and move it over to be in the middle of the next post, right next to it. Okay, so here's where we scored. We're moving it and we're putting it right here in the center of the post. From there, what we're going to do is score at 2 7/8. Okay. Next, we're going to score at 3 5/8. And at this point, we're going to take our paper, move it all the way back over to the 0. Because as you see, when we moved it over to be in the middle of this post, it left a blank spot right here. So what we're going to do now is move that back over to where it's all the way over here. And then we're going to score at 5 5/8. And it will look like that. Now we'll go ahead and burnish all of our lines, all of our score lines. And to make this into a wrap, like a box, we need to attach the 2 flaps on the ends. So on our short end, we'll take our glue and add it there. And then we're going to bring the other flap over on top of it to connect it. Now you can do it without the box, but sometimes I find it's easier when you have the base inside the wrap. But, you know, again, that's just a preference. Whatever you like to do, go ahead and feel free to do that. So there we have it. Let's give it a little burnish. You can burnish it with the box in there, or you can actually take the box out and do it on the table. And then to put our base in there, it just pops right in. And then make sure it can go in and out both sides just to kind of get the paper used to having that in there. You'll also see that the wrap might be a little bit over the box, and I think that's normal for a matchbox. If you don't like it that way, then just take off the extra 1/8 of an inch in the width. So instead of 3 1/8, it would be 3 inches, but I don't mind that. So that's what our matchbox will look like when we have both components created. Now you need to create a total of 24 wraps to go along with your base of your matchbox. After I completed creating 24 boxes, I realized that the wrap was tighter than I wanted. So what I decided to do was modify the measurements for the Matchbox wrap. So what I have here is the same size piece of cardstock. I'm just using this as an example to show you. This is 6 by 3 1/8. And I'm going to take the camera and move it down closer to the paper so you can see what I'm doing, because it's a lot of 16ths measurements. Okay, so the first thing I did was put the paper in my scoreboard long ways at the top. 3/4 was our original score mark, but what I'm going to do is not score there, but go to the post next to it and make a line. So once we made that pencil mark, what I'm going to do is shift this over slightly to the right and align that mark up with the 7/8 inch line, and we're going to score. Now that we have our score mark made, we're going to take our paper and shift it back to the left-hand side and score it to 2 7/8 right here by the 3. Our next score mark would be 3 5/8, but we're going to go over to the next post, in between it, make a mark. We're going to shift that to the right so that it aligns with 3 3/4 and make a score mark. With the paper all the way over to the left-hand side, we're going to go and come to the 5 5/8 mark. We're going to go to the post next to it, create a pencil mark, shift the pencil mark over to 5 3/4 and create a score line. From here, you will burnish all of your score lines and follow the instructions as I previously recorded, and this will provide enough space so that the matchboxes can flow easily in and out of the matchbox cover. Now that our box is constructed, we're going to do some decorating, and for the inside of the matchbox, what we're going to need is one piece of deco paper, and it is going to be 2 15/16 by 1 15/16. Now, if you don't like to deal with the 15/16 of an inch, just go down to 1 7/8 and 2 7/8. Now, I did use some vintage photo distressed ink to go around the edges, and I'm going to use some art glitter glue to attach this. And just plop that down in there. I changed the size so it would be a little bit bigger so that you wouldn't have to worry about the placement being exact. Okay, so we'll just push that down in there. So that's that piece. Now we need to decorate where we will put the handle for the drawer. And this is how it will go in. So this little end piece. So we will need one little decorative piece that is 1 15/16 by 11/16. Now I created a Cricut file, and I will have that link down below because I actually already included the holes in the Cricut file so that you don't have to do that separately. The only thing you will need to do is punch them out once you adhere it to the front of your box. Use a small hole punch and punch those. You could also use an awl. Okay, so let's go ahead and adhere that. Again, I used vintage photo around the edges. Just going to go in between the little holes there. Now I do try to center this just a smidge so that the craft paper is showing on all 4 sides. And just push down. So like I mentioned, the holes are already in this piece because I used that cut file that I created. So I'm just going to use a hole punch. And I don't know really what size this is, but it makes like a pinhole type of hole. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't even know how to explain it. If you have an awl, that will also help. But what I do is I take that over where the hole is and just punch. So now we have our two holes in the drawer. The next thing you're going to need is about a 6-inch piece of thread, string, whatever you'd like to use. I have crochet thread here, or craft cord, and it is in pink. Now for the drawer handle, I am using these metallic beads from Crafter Square that I got at Dollar Tree. I thought these matched the project perfectly, so I've been using them. So you'll need one for each drawer. The thread can go right into the hole. Of course, that one won't work when you're on, filming. Okay, so we just push that right through, and now we have our drawer handle. So let's attach it to the drawer here. I'm going to be using these flexi needle threaders that I recently picked up at Joann's. They are by Jacqs, and they are more cost efficient than purchasing the metal threaders. So I would highly recommend them. They have this great carrying case. You get 35 of them, and they are plastic, so they will definitely last longer. So I've been using this for this particular project. We're going to take it and put it into one of our holes. Take one end of our threaded bead, put it into the hole, and pull it through, and now it's on the inside of the little box there. And do the same thing for the other hole. Pull that through, and now our box is threaded. So it'll look like this. Now what I do is kind of make sure that it looks even and everything, and then tie a knot in the back of it. There we go. I tie it pretty tight, and again, check it to make sure it's even, because when you're tying it, the metal ball or bead can, go to one side or the other. And then I tie another knot to reinforce it, and then now we have that adhered, and you'll see it'll pull just a smidge away from the drawer itself, which is fine. And then we cut off the little ends. So that's what it will look like. And now I'll show you something extra that I did to secure this. To give this drawer here more stability and strength when you're pulling on the knob to open the drawer, what I did was take some plain shipping tape, just cut out a little square. I took the thread and kind of pulled down on it just to kind of tighten it up. And then I would put my tape in over top of it where I had it to get tight. Burnish the tape in there. And because I wanted to strengthen this and to kind of cover up the thread, I really didn't like that showing, I cut out another square, which is 1 15/16 by 11/16, and I'm going to cover that. So it's just craft to match the rest of the box. So whatever color you're working in, I would suggest doing the same. And then actually you don't even need to do this step. I just wanted to do it to cover up the thread from showing and to give more strength to the drawer. So I make sure I pull that piece all the way to the top there, but don't let it go over. And then just press everything down. Again, this is an optional part that you can do. I was really happy with this, with the results. It makes it very sturdy right here, which is great. Okay, so now that that part's done, we are going to add our number to it. Now the kit that I used actually had advent calendar numbers in it, so I just used those, punched them out with a 1-inch circle, and then I added some embossing powder to the numbers and then heat embossed those. Doubt that you'll be able to see, but that's what I did. And so now I'm going to adhere it to the right hand side of our little bead there. On these, I went around the corners with Angel Pink by Memento. Now the 1-inch circle fits really well here, but it can sometimes go over just a little bit on the drawer. So if that bothers you or it gets in the way of when you put it back into the sleeve, sometimes you'll be able to hear it. You can cut that piece off. This one isn't bothering it, but I'll just go ahead and show you. You just snip that off, and then I use my ink to go over the top of it, just so that it wasn't plain or stark white. And then now you have your number attached. So this is your drawer completed, or your little matchbox. So all the steps that I've just shown you, you would do this again the number of times of days that you are counting down. As I am doing a 24 calendar, I have created 24 of these little boxes, matchboxes. And this is what they all look like. When I did it, I did an alternating of the numbers from side to side, and I also did a random selection of the numbers so that they're not in order. I think that's funner when you have to find the number. I wanted to point out one thing. If you are doing alternating numbers the way I did it, I have a set of 4 of 3 each drawers for when you start to the left hand side, and then you'll have 4 of each set of 3 drawers when you start at the right hand side. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Just wanted to point that out because you're alternating. You'll have 4 and 4. So that's all of my boxes. Now, the next thing that you need to do is actually attach 3 of the boxes together. And so I've already done that for all of these, but I left one set to show you. Okay, to adhere these into one little bundle, what I used was my Fabri-Tac. As you know, I put it in one of these squeeze bottles from the Dollar Tree. And don't add a lot, but make sure you add enough that will allow great adherence between the 2 matchboxes. So you align them, make sure they're straight, and just press one on top of the other. And then I usually pull the drawers out and kind of just go in there and go along the sides of the middle here that got adhered. You can actually even smush this down and make sure that it's all adhered together. They just pop right back up. And then we'll do the next one. I make sure I go around the edges and then into the center. And then just line the boxes up. And then I kind of do the same thing, pull the drawers out, take off any excess that came through, and there's our box all connected, one unit. Actually, these came out pretty strong, and I think it's because of the craft paper that I was using and the black cardstock. They were pretty sturdy. So I definitely recommend using a base that is very sturdy.